Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. This is another episode of Mental Health Perspectives, a platform where men just have subjective conversations. Let me put it this way, conversations around their subjective experiences of how they engage with the world. And what we're going to be talking about today is abuse. What we're going to be talking about today is violence. We've had a lot of conversations around violence and abuse, and I think one of those chats would be, do men actually check themselves out? Do men actually have these conversations with each other about what they should be doing in their relationships and what they shouldn't? So these are the type of the conversations we're going to have right now. So I think, and I'm hoping that whatever it is that we do discuss from here kind of gives you a perspective of what men think about abuse. All right. So that's a lot where our conversation is going to be coming from. So I've got a couple of my mates here, a couple of my friends here. We all men from different traditional backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. And we thought, let's just have a conversation around that. I'll tell you who's who as the conversation goes. But at this point in time, the one thing that we do want to focus on is the conversation we're having. All right. And that's about men's perspective around what they think abuse is. So we're going to get into it a little bit. Gentlemen, welcome again. Today we're talking violence and we're talking abuse, particularly. Mm-hmm. Right. And we're trying to share our understanding of it, right, from a subjective point of view. All right. We've been in a lot of situations where we've heard a lot of females asking us, except as, do y'all talk? When one of your mates is saying that, I hit so and so and so and so, do y'all have those conversations? And if y'all do have those conversations, how come there hasn't been any change? All right. And I guess maybe let's start there. Do we have mates that have been recognized as abusers? And when we sit in those conversations, they say certain things and we don't say anything, or we do say anything? Do we have conversations with our mates? Because as much as we're all good friends, we're also quite like attached to another network outside of this. Smooth knows another 100 people outside. You know another 100 people outside when I Lloyd. Now you know another 100 people outside Ace. So everybody's got a network. Have you found yourself in a situation where you recognized that, you're moving in a very iffy way here? Has any of us had that situation before? And if yes, how did that look like?
So if I could just jump in on that one. I think I've had, but the timeline of the events was back in varsity.
So bad.
Where I had a roommate of mine who was dating this chick. And to understand also why he did what he did. Actually, when it happened, where he beat up his girl, we sat the guy down. There was another friend of mine also. We sat the guy down. We made him understand the nature of what he had done, because first and foremost, he was there to study, not to beat up girls, right? Second of all, we made him understand that he needs to now phone that girl, set up a meeting, apologize, and he must break up with that girl. He must initiate a breakup. He himself, because he's beaten that girl, meaning he's opened the door to whatever that had happened that made him decide to lay hands on the girl.
That's not good anymore.
Then the second time it happens, what's to stop him from doing it and then apologizing? So we actually forced him to go and break up with the girl after apologizing. And then after all of that, we sat the guy down and we tried to understand, where is this guy coming from? And when this guy poured out his heart, he was telling us that, I'm from Elodale and Koga, like deep in the boondoes, and this is the only life I know. When a man is not happy with a woman, you beat the woman up to submission. That's what I saw from my dad doing to my mom. I'm not saying it's right. I understand when you guys are pointing it out, but this has been my lived experience. That if there's if there's any confrontation, and you're a man with more power than this person, once you can't agree or reach a level ground, then you must escalate it to a physical altercation. Then the dominant force thereafter is the one who's going to have the final say. This is what happened. I'm not saying I was right, but this is all I know. And my heart sank because now I'm sitting there thinking, what are we dealing with? Because that guy had anger issues, deep issues when he would tell you stories and events of what had happened in his life. Those are stories that were not supposed to happen to any child. You know? So for him, going to varsity was an escape from his own reality.
But now, unfortunately, in that incident, this lived experience that's been tough for him has now become how he frames his reality going forward. Like, this is how he understands how relationships are. Yes, it's one thing to have a tough situation and understand that it was a tough situation and I'm trying to move past it. But this tough situation that he's been experiencing has now become a reality and how he views relationships. So it's almost doubly hectic. And I think when you mentioned that part of, except bro, I felt my heart sank. I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense because you're looking at a nigga that you're like, hey boy, you moved in a very not okay way. I can't accept it, but damn, that's tough to hear. That's all you know. There's nothing outside of that. It's hectic to take.
Yeah, sorry, just to finish off this point. So we almost performed a rehabilitation process where we now had to, I would say, decolonize his brain.
Yeah.
We had to decolonize his brain, make him aware of what the world is, you know. And slowly but surely, he also now started to engage with people differently. And he was a very, very nice character to have around. But the issue was always his temper. So we tried to work around his temper. And as soon as he started being aware of himself, whenever that feeling would come about, he would learn to snap out of it. And then he was able to control himself better. He was able to connect with people better. I'm not saying we're the ones who turned him to that. He allowed himself to be criticized and saw that this is not the life I also want to lead, you know. At some point, I want to be something or someone important. However, the change needs to come from within, and I need to get rid of the crutches that say, I grew up like this. And so it's something that came also from within, because I'm sure when he would look at himself, he would look, you know, when you look at yourself and you think, this is not how I should be living my life. I'm destined for big things. I think he always had that, but I think he just needed to be redirected or reminded that in life there are other things that, you know, you need to let go of in order to realize what you need to be.
Yeah, Mavic, you wanted to mention something. I saw you nodding and had your hands up. I wonder if you had anything to add to that.
No, honestly, on a personal point of view, this whole thing, I heard Umkulua saying what he was saying, and a whole lot of things were stirring up in my mind. A whole lot of things were stirring up in my mind. In my side of things, I will always persist on this. Not going to stop. Responsibility.
What you mean?
It's not easy at that moment.
To take responsibility.
It's not easy at that moment. I call Lula. I'm going to tell you the truth. I call Lula. But it's the truth. The truth of the reality is a responsibility.
So, Gula situation, how do you tie responsibility? As you are you saying that it was quite difficult for Smuda's friend to take responsibility of his actions at the time, and the fact that he did acknowledge that responsibility, that was the catalyst to the change in behavior?
okay, maybe I was a bit lacking here and there.
Mm.
Then responsibility is a huge part of it. And then it goes down to net reflection.
Yeah.
But reflection is very crucial in everything in life, in my opinion. Reflection is a crucial part of life. That man had a whole lot of things going on. I don't want to speak too much about him. From my side of things, I just really, truly think and I believe, Uti, when it goes back to the topic at hand, abuse. Abuse. Whether you are planning it, meditated or not, directly or indirectly, there's only one way out. Thinking about it, a reflection. If you are a man that is willing to sit down and look at yourself, I'm not so sure, Wuti, like you will get the answers. But I just believe, Wuti, sometimes as a man, you just need to sit down and look at yourself and find a way moving forward from there. I stand to be corrected.
No, I hear you, Margaret. So what Livia is proposing there, which I guess is part of what Usbudaman was highlighting, is that this gent was in a space where he had been identified as an abuser. He might have not identified himself as one, because what he understood was this is how relationships need to work. And to be honest, gents, that makes sense. Unacceptable, but you don't need to accept something for it to make sense to you, right? That's at least my belief, right? It makes sense because if I'm having a conversation with Usbu, this is me as a man, and our conversation is an argumentative one over a point that we are fighting or arguing about, right? This is not a healthy argument. He did something, he feels I did it, whatever. But there's emotion behind the argument. When our words fail us between me and Sbu, the next question that comes in from one of us, depending on who got there first, is, now what you gonna do about it? That's always what ends up being with guys, is that if me and you are arguing and we're getting heated up and the words start loose, we don't have another conversation now. You've passed your words, I've passed mine. Like, we're here now, there's no other words. The next question is like, well, now what? Well, now what? And that's the competitive nature that's the competitive nature that men will engage in with another man. Now, that strategy might be somewhat acceptable if it's a guy and a guy fighting, right? Sure thing, there's better ways of solving that problem. And that's another conversation we can have, is that how do we not get to a point where we need to resort to beating each other up for men to realize you've got a point made, because that doesn't necessarily solve anything. You win the fight in that moment, right? But it doesn't solve the actual concern. But when it comes to men and men conversation, I can understand if my words fail and small words fail, I know exactly what's coming next, right? And we'll decide after that who won that. But when I get into a relationship with a female, when my words fail and theirs hardly ever fail,
then what happens next?
You see what I'm trying to say?
You shut up.
That strategy can't work.
You shut up.
That same strategy can't work in that situation.
No, it doesn't.
But this man applied that strategy, right? He applied the strategy. So I know I'm coming in from my sort of understanding, but he had deeper scars, according to Usbudaman, that also perpetuate that type of engagement with the female partner, right? So it leaves us to that space of there might be people that don't realize that they are abusers in the sense of the term and in the sense of describing. They might not, that guy, until gentlemen like Osbulele and all of the mates said, what you're doing, we get what you think it is, but this is what it's constructed as. Generally, you are an abuser. And for the first time, maybe that gent was like, that's all I know. What you talking about? So there might be gentlemen that think that one strategy fits another situation. And I've always seen it like this. So why am I wrong? There might be situations like that. So we get stuck in a situation where like, are there gents walking out there acting in ways that they feel justified? And they don't actually have that category in their minds that I'm an actual abuser.
But I think there you got two subcategories under that. One, they grew up in that situation, they saw what was going on, so that's what they believe, as whose friend was. But then you also got guys that know what they're doing is wrong. That's all they know, but then they also don't confide in their friends or in anyone. That listen, behind closed doors, when me and my missus are in an argument, I lay hands on her. There's guys that won't say anything because they know it's wrong and they don't want to be seen as a bad guy. So how do we see and how do we get that out of people?
It's a good question. So there's two questions that lay now. We've got men that will recognize that they're abusers but choose not to rectify that and hide it because they understand that he's going to end up with friends like Smooth that I got him. Tell him that except you don't move like that.
Yeah.
And there's gents that are possibly don't actually conceptualize that they're abusers. And how do you engage with those? So those are the two things that are on the table at this point in time. How do you engage with this both folks? How do you engage with two of these types of folks? Because they do exist. They do exist. I don't know what you gents think.
I think my thinking is this. You mentioned something about the closed doors abusers. The closed doors abusers are the people that program people. That if I do something behind this closed door,
it stays.
Here. Once you mention it to someone, it's going to be a bigger problem than it is now. It's going to be a bigger problem than it is right now. Whether it's a male or it's a female, but there's going to be a problem that is always going to want to program a person that's going to say, if I do this to you today, how much more am I going to do to you tomorrow? So you must always believe that there's going to be a bigger problem that's going to come. So now the courage can either come from the person that is being abused, or from a person that is going to witness the abuse, or from a person that is going to suspect the abuse. On how much courage do they have to present it to other people? I think I'm going to end it there for now. But you're going to get deeper into this.
Ndakothi ngathi ufuna uzane le point apha but i-point
Avala is. Uthini mntakakhe?
No, I hear what Ace is saying, that with that abuse, it comes with a lot. Should you say anything, then it's going to get worse. So rather not, and you suffer in silence.
Yeah.
And I believe it becomes a bigger problem. But I also think that if we, as the people outside, were to pay attention, like as close friends to that person that's being abused, you would see certain signs, or they would send out certain hints that I'm being abused, I'm not okay at home, it's not fine. And you pick up that if you like look deeper into it, okay, this person is giving hints. And don't also tell yourself that I'm looking too much into this, because these days that's what happens. Look into it, try and see, get them to speak, and you'll get to find out that, okay, this person is actually being abused and they're not okay because they've been promised a bigger punishment.
Sorry for cutting it. Shalanat, do you know what usually happens there when it comes into those dynamics of things, my friend? They tend to come, what's the word? they get slidden into you, my friend.
But subtle.
Yeah.
Explain that. Explain. The way you did that almost seems like on a picture what it means. Explain what that looks like.
I let the word isilungu asikho
How does it get slid into it?
My friend, it is so smart the way they squeeze it in, my friend. It is so smart. You know what I would like, the way the next time you speak about it, man. Yeah. So bold. Because it's there, bro. This guy, we have spoken about it now, guy. Who JP has mentioned this thing. It happens whereby sometimes people are just doing it, man. And then they always pretend nothing is going on. Nothing is going on. Nothing is going on. Nothing is going on. And Ibamba, Kolo.
On that point, I think you guys would remember a movie where there's this guy with a beautiful voice, Utank and Emery once in a movie.
Preacher's Kid movie. Remember
Utank, the way he abused that girl. The abuse is so deep to a point where I think it paralyzes one's awareness and it amplifies the fear to a point where someone is inside a bubble. If you bump this boundary, you're pissing this person off. If we are ngapha, you are pissing this person off.
Step on the floor.
Your existence. So that person almost destroys your confidence. Because I remember this one scene where Utank, they were going to perform and the other will perform, but they were on a road tour. Fix yourself up, we're about to go and perform or something like that. Imagine better backstage. In 30 seconds, you're supposed to
be fine. It should be great.
Exactly.
Life should keep on moving.
Exactly. And then do you know that you made me do that? Now he's taking the onus onto that girl. Oba, the reason I beat you up, you force my hand because the actions lead me to discipline you. He's not saying I'm disciplining you.
You don't know
not discipline.
You don't know how to act right. You don't know how to act right.
Oh, now this person is being abused. And the abuse, unfortunately, it is one of the most difficult things to cite from the beginning. Because the person, I think also, we need to learn his skills of making someone feel so secure that, one, I think it's embarrassing to admit that your relationship is not perfect. I'm actually now getting beaten to the pulp by this person, you know. So
it's not the same thing.
No, I mean, if abantu they've known you to be a couple etilated, and now they don't know that every night you go to bed crying and you are swollen, you've got bruises around your body, not to the face, around your body. Now, to actually go to people and say, it's not what you guys think. I actually don't love this guy. I am scared of this guy.
Yeah.
I think it takes courage. So if Mhlambi, I think it's also very difficult for the other person. I think that person is in denial. And to say
which person is this?
The one that is getting abused. Yeah. When you go and confront the person, like Asipe was saying, it requires courage. Courage is not only required from the person who's initiating the topic. Courage is also required from the person who's experiencing the abuse to be honest with themselves, to say, you know what?
I wanted to make another example of the movie that you made, and I think it's everybody knows that movie, The Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Yeah.
It speaks exactly about the courage that you are touching on right now. It took so long for the lady to recognize that after so much, because we must understand one thing, because we will try and have these conversations about who's abusing who and whatsoever, but we are always going to beat around the bushes and not give the right cure to what the problem is. The courage, as I have said, and I maintain, it either comes from the person that has witnessed the abuse, has the courage on either to confront the person that is being abused on why are you not speaking about the abuse that you're experiencing.
It's so easy to say that.
Listen to me very carefully. The experience says that the person has witnessed an abuse from this person. You are a peer or a friend, as a person that you drink with, or a person that is abusing this one, and the person that is being abused also needs courage. If they need courage, the person that is abusing obviously has the courage, because for the fact that they can be able to do whatever that they can do with another human being freely without anyone, they have a courage. But their courage only stands with one person. Yeah. And it cannot be justified on how much courage you have. It can be outside of that space. Now, the motivation is going to be the person that is going to be abused. Brian, I come to you having experienced, or you have given a hint on how much abuse are you experiencing. Yeah. I come to you and I express what I have seen. Right? I've seen signs of ABCDFG. Are you okay? No, yes, I am okay. I'm the most happiest person. You can see my husband is this and that. Going back to the movie they were a very happy couple. They were a very happy couple. And as a matter of fact, the crowd behind the husband and the wife were supporting the happiness that they were seeing. Because they did not know what was going on behind closed doors. Up until she had courage to go and speak about it to one or two people. And then everybody had to follow that this is the courage that we can follow. Now, imagine if those two people that she had expressed it to, they would say, Mr. JP, we speak about these generational experiences that a person has seen whoever beating this one up. Imagine if those two people that she had expressed her courage to would say, let's come and speak about it. Don't speak about it to a lot of people. Let's shove it under the carpet. We're going to discuss it.
Let's just fix it in private.
Let's fix it in private.
Right?
Imagine now how much of an impact it would have on an individual rather than the crowd that she has expressed it to, that are not experiencing the problem and that they're not proud. Okay.
That makes sense.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So the courage comes from either or.
Yeah.
The person that is being abused and the person that are going to receive the abuse, and how are they going to take it far, or as far as them taking a stand in to say, this is abuse. The abuser. Because the abuser, as you have mentioned, might not be aware that I'm abusing.
Might just be aware that I'm
or could not be aware that they are abusing.
Is that a possibility?
That is
There is
definitely
a
a possibility.
possibility.
But
100%.
just to touch on what you're saying, Ace,
100% is.
there's another movie called Gold Strip.
Yeah.
And they in that movie, similar to Diary of Mad Black Woman, but the husband wasn't physical with the woman, but still abusing her by cheating and emotional and all of that.
How was give us an example of how the emotional abuse looked like?
The emotional abuse,
You can paint a scene or an example.
So the husband kept on reminding the wife, we have to stay together, we have to show face, because we are America's favorite couple.
Top what?
Because they had a cooking show together, they wrote a book
pressure,
together.
You know what happens with
So I
social?
can treat you terribly, but you still gotta show up.
Yes.
That's that similar case with the one like, hey, listen, we've got a show to do now.
Yeah.
Get yourself back up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah.
And she kept on saying, no, it's fine. Yes, I know he's cheated before, but he said he's working on it. It's over. This is what she was saying to her girlfriend when the girlfriends were trying to say, listen, we've seen photos, we've seen evidence, your man is cheating. So the friends knew, and now they're confronting the friend and say, listen, there's evidence that things are not going all right with the marriage. What's going on? But now she's been abused for so long, she accepted it. How do you get through to people like that? Now, obviously, in the movie, it's a movie.
People who don't want to accept that is yakala and stuff.
No, they accept that this is my life. I need him to show face because we are that couple that people look up to. We are the face of what a good marriage must be and looks like in front of public, but behind closed doors,
we know the actual problems.
But now, why I'm trying to tie that into with what you're saying is that in your group of friends, knowing your friends well enough to see that there's a change.
He spoke about this.
Yes.
He spoke about this.
I'm mentioning that one, that tying it in is that only when you see she's smiling, but it's not the same smile.
Yeah.
She's happy, but it's not the same happiness as before. Something's wrong. Something's different. And in all of our groups of friends, we know if I'm with this group of friends, that one is the mother, this one's the father, this one's always making sure we eat, this one's always making sure there's a drink, that one's making sure that there's, a plan to go to this jail, to that jail, to that jail. Everyone's always got a role. It's never given. It's always because of their personality.
Yeah.
They know that this one, he's good at organizing. This one, because he likes food, he's going to make sure that everyone's going to eat.
Of course, we're going to mention food.
Those people.
Of course, we're going to mention food.
Of course, because I am there.
Thank you.
I am there.
It relates to one thing.
Yeah. I love eating, so the way I've grown up is when one eats, we all eat.
Sure.
It's you can't be doing one thing for yourself. You don't know about this one. When last did he eat? When last did he drink? When last did he have a good night's sleep? So if I'm doing something that's nice, or if I'm indulging in something, I want to make sure that everyone's indulging so that we're all on a similar playing field. So you know that in your group of friends, it does change from time to time, even your role. In this group of friends, you might be the joker. This group of friends, you might be the caretaker. This group of friends, you might be something else, depending on the dynamics, because you've got your gym friends, you've got your sports friends, you've got your work friends. In those spaces, we need to know our different friends. How does he act?
Segments. Speaking about that.
I wanna add on what JP is saying. Within those group of friends, would I be lying to ask a question that says we have a responsibility of accommodating ourselves within friendships? And I will come back to the question or to the topic of the abuse. Because first of all, abusers tend to recruit people
within the space.
You understand? Abusers are going to recruit people that fall in love with what they do. And even if they give advice, but they're going to sugarcoat the advice to them. It's not going to be as blunt as how we are speaking about it right now. So if you, am I wrong to ask a question that says, we need to identify, we have a responsibility to identify friends that are within what we are not, so that we can be able to identify people that are not what we are. If an abuser is
that's a hard one, eh?
Yes, we do have that responsibility.
That's a hard one.
Because if you can't acknowledge that I cannot and quickly take a decision that this is my drinking partner, then therefore you are, I don't know how to put it, but your friendship defining capacity lacks somewhere somehow. Your relationship defining capacity lacks somewhere somehow, because your friendship needs to be friendship. Your acquaintance needs to be acquaintance. Your whatsoever needs to be this, and whatsoever needs to be this. So that you don't go to an acquaintance for an advice for a relationship. You don't go to a business partner for an advice for an abuse. You will mix up those people and you'll get the wrong advice and you'll go crazy. You are not going to be sure about anything that you're going to be getting because you are not identifying who and who is what and whatsoever the case. So you need to first, this is a very hard thing to do. I think I mentioned it at the beginning that you need to identify. If you cannot acknowledge and identify what is it that you contribute in the problems that are going to be within the relationships, that if you're an abuser, you can acknowledge this is the problem. Like what you just said. This is the problem. The problem is the person that you're abusing. You cannot acknowledge, then there is a problem.
So, with that understanding, it seems to me that there's a lot of solutions that you gents are giving out. Let me not call them solutions. Because if I'm saying that it's solutions, that it's very prescriptive on what needs to happen for somebody to somehow stop being an abuser.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can, I know my profession, but I don't think I can speak in that way as if I've got solutions for it. But let's say perspectives that may possibly assist somebody think differently. Yes. I've been hearing a lot of these. And that's the one that you've just highlighted, is that when abuse is a conversation that we are having and we've identified the perpetrator, how we move to try and address that is not from a one-dimensional perspective. It's from a multi-dimensional, it's from systemic sort of perspective. Because if Brian is an abuser, in a very similar situation that's Bulele highlighted, it's the system around him, which himself included, that gets to make shifts, that helps him get to a realization of, this ain't it. Is that what we say? That's the first part of it, right? We need to work systemically because you mentioned it. We are your friends. Do we recognize that your smile is no longer the same smile? That's what you mentioned. But we need to recognize that. You mentioned it, Ace, is that it's from the abuser himself that needs to look at himself in the mirror and move differently.
Yes.
But also, that other person needs to have a bit of courage to say, I'm done with this, right? But also, this means from another perspective of who's witnessing it. JP is your friend. Can he say something to say, man, Ace, we don't move like this?
Can I jump into it?
And then what you mentioned as well, when Andrea Gucci, was the reflective part, which is the personal part of looking yourself in the mirror. So I think a lot of us has highlighted the fact that it's a systemic thing when we're solving that issue.
Can I jump in quickly? The conversation will never end. It will never end. We could always sit here, the topic is around mental everything. Yeah? But gents, when it gets to this one, it will never end.
So Mavish, we're still going. Okay, let's
never end. The reason why I say this, it comes with a whole lot of a lack of irresponsibility. To think about it. COVID. Indoda ihleli kwayo. What were they told to do in COVID? Someone need to get. What was a man told to do at that moment?
Sit home, bro. Don't go anywhere.
So it's a joke at the moment. Yeah. It's quite sensitive. But a man was told to stop being a man. A man, for some time, according to what was happening, couldn't be a man. Well, based on my understanding, a man is someone who should find a plan, find a solution, make sure that things can work, just make sure that things are happening. COVID couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Psychologists should be asking. Yeah.
I feel attacked.
Obviously. It's an interesting one, right? Psychologists should be asking,
I feel attacked.
why couldn't you do that?
Do what?
Why couldn't you be a man at that moment? Because psychologists, they know very well that a man should be solutions to
No,
problems.
they don't.
Huh?
I also.
Well, it's the lack of the understanding.
No, it's a lack of understanding.
Yeah, lack of the understanding.
Can I check in? Can I check in on what you're saying?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, a man should make a plan.
No, can I check in on what you're saying?
Yeah, fix me.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to fix you, but I'm going to suggest.
Give you a different perspective.
And give you a different perspective here.
Based on the COVID, right?
Based on the COVID. How I want to disagree with him might be deeper, but we are going to unpack that on the deepness of it. Or the depth
as
of
the
it.
time goes.
As time goes. COVID was not something that was planned.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the man was planned. How you grow as a person, if I can put it like that, in a blunt manner. How you grow as a person is how you were raised. You were never raised not to anticipate circumstances that you're going to encounter.
Yeah.
So now, those circumstances did not, COVID cannot be a determination of how much of a man can you be in your house.
Beautiful one. It's a
Unless,
beautiful one.
Unless,
Beautiful one.
yes. Now, you were raised to be a man, not to be a man that is going to be
based on the
COVID
circumstances, right?
No, COVID cannot determine you, but the circumstances can raise a man out of you. I'm sorry to be.
No,
So I hear both your points, né?
Yeah.
You are saying a man could not be a man during COVID, and you're saying
not so limited.
Yeah, and you're saying
I still
a
stand
man
to be corrected.
Was raised a certain way and he had a plan, but now my thing is that
No,
man.
brother, before we get that out of context, can I correct you?
Okay.
I'm not saying a man was raised to have a plan.
Yeah.
I'm saying a man was raised to be a man.
Regardless of the situation.
Regardless of the situation. So now the COVID cannot determine what kind of a man you are. It can reveal what kind of a man. More like, if I can make a simple example, if you have money, it's going to reveal. If you don't have money, it's going to reveal at the same time. So now, it's within a man that was raised that the character is going to show. In what circumstance, whether the COVID is, whether the accident is, whether the whatever, it's within the circumstance that the man is going to reveal or is going to be revealed.
Okay, now, since now you've corrected me.
Yes.
No, now I've got a different opinion because I was going to comment on what you had said, but now since now I understand. You can continue.
Let me. Can I put something in there?
Okay, yeah. Get it, JP.
You said it all boils down to.
By the way.
It all boils down to responsibility. You're saying that everything boils down to responsibility.
Yes.
Reflection. When you are a child, do you know what is right and wrong?
No, you
don't.
No, you don't.
It gets taught to you.
Yeah.
You do something and someone tells you this is wrong, this is right.
Yeah.
If you grow up and no one tells you hitting your woman is wrong, when you reflect, you're reflecting, but you don't know it's wrong because you were never taught that. How does that link up with what you are saying? It all boils down to reflection and it has to be internally achieved.
No, beautiful question. It's a beautiful question, actually, and it's quite fair. And remember that I was reflecting to that specific moment, which was a very difficult time that we were living in, COVID times. The COVID times, they actually exposed a lot of people.
There was a lot more abuse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say this, Nat, before I get to your question or what you were asking. The COVID times, what the COVID times did for a lot of people, they did exactly what I'm actually saying, reflecting.
Do you know?
Listen to this. Listen to this.
Oh, yes.
The COVID times, they put you at a very uncomfortable position whereby you were like, Mama, is this whole thing that's happening because I don't spend 9 hours at home? Or it depends. It depends on how you look at it, man. It depends on how you look at it. But at the end of the day, you know what the most important part when it comes to the topic at hand, man, the topic at hand, what the COVID did, it allowed partners to spend a whole lot of time together at the same time. And then they really, really, really got to explore themselves. Né? And then during that time, for a few people, some great things happened, but a lot of things happened for a lot of people. Not so great it happened. Gents, am I lying? Am I lying?
No, you're not lying.
Am I lying?
If you were to sum it up in what you're saying, is that when we get to relationships, whether or not we are aware on whether we are abusing people or we're not abusing people or people are abusing us. Or
I was not even done speaking.
Yes. Can I just chip in on that? I asked. Whether we were or we're not aware, that time that you have just mentioned, which is the COVID time, gave us time to reflect. Spoke about reflection. It gave us time to reflect on whether who is the abuser and who is not the abuser. Who is the perpetrator?
That's just part of it, bro.
Who is the receiver of the abuse or who is not there? Because now we have the opportunity. Remember, when we get into these are frank conversations that we get to. When you get into a relationship with someone, either or, there's going to come a point where you're going to be comfortable in doing whatever that you want to do, because you feel like I'm here and I've marked my ground. I'm a lion. I can shit everywhere that I want to shit. I'm sorry to use that word. You can pee wherever that you want to pee, and because you are marking your territory.
Yeah.
Right now, after marking your territory, you can leave and go and do whatever. Literally forgetting that there is where I've marked my territory. Whether you have forgotten or you remember, but when you come back, things are not the same, because the territory always has people that want to
be within that space.
Now, it's not always the case that people that want to be in the space are people that want to take over. But there are people that are bringing different perspectives to the people that you have left to mark, which is, in this point, we are men, we leave women. Now, there's people that are going to come and introduce new things to these women that we leave there. When you come wanting the same old you, COVID speaking, when you come and want the old you, because you've been for whatever years that you've been married with this person before COVID, now COVID forces you to come and sit and remember, how did I mark this territory? You have forgotten your introduction to this territory. You understand? You have forgotten your introduction to this territory, but how did I mark this territory, basically? Because now COVID forced everyone to remember, if I can put it that way, forced everyone to remember, how did you mark this territory, let alone the dynamics of how you maintain it. It forced everyone to remember.
I was not even done.
I hear you, Mavic. I think let's take a pivot. Spudaman, I know that you've got a point, Mdagwet. And I don't know if your point in relation to the same topic. Because I want to close that part. Mavic, I know you feel you okay. All right. So I want to close, not that I'm closing the topic itself, but I'm trying to pivot to a different direction, because I feel like we're going to get stuck in the same point. What I'm summarizing and hearing as we taking a shift to a different position is that just because you are an abuser doesn't mean you have to stay there. That's what we say.
I think I agree.
That's what we say. There's different understandings of how we can how an abuser can shift into a non-abusive person. But I think the consensus that we're saying is that just because you were an abuser doesn't mean you need to stay there. Just because you have been abused and you are being abused doesn't mean you need to stay there too. Right? Yes, we understand there are restraints and circumstances that pull you to feel or think or believe that that's all that is. But there are situations that communicate that it doesn't have to end like that. Which means that the message we're sending out is that we get you. You're hitting your woman. We get you. You hitting your man. We get you. You swearing and cursing at your man and your woman. We get that. And it's the only way you might have known. It's the only way that might have gotten you the results. It's the only way you think is there. But we are having a conversation and saying, that's not all there is out there. There's a different way in which you can engage and still get the fulfillment that you're hoping to get with less of the damage. Is that a consensus that we're having? Even if the ways on how we do it differs, but is that the consensus? Whether we are reflecting, whether we are doing it in a systemic way, but are we agreeing that those are the conversations we're having, that you can move out of that space?
That's quite possible.
All right, again, plus. So now, let's shift into this place of what actually abuse is and what it actually looks like in a relational point of view. We've had this chat before. It's a power dynamic, isn't it? Because I've got something that's so powerful, I can exert it on you, and you don't have any bloody option but to take it. That's what it is. Whether it's the words I use on you, whether it's the power I use on you, whatever the case might be. But I'm so here in terms of the power dynamic that I can exert this power on you. It debilitates you to a point where you can't move.
Can I ask you a question? Does it really have to do with man and a woman? Or?
No. That's why I'm saying it's a power dynamic. It can be a man-man. It can be a female-female. We do it differently. We do it differently.
Yeah, I'm asking this very same question because it's very quite sensitive. Very quite sensitive.
What's the question?
It's all boys in this space, my man.
And?
It's all boys in this space. I would like to believe or think or something. I think the topic is around abuse, right? Or
don't think it is.
Is bullying part of it?
It is.
Yeah. Bullying is
part of it. It's a power dynamic. It's a power dynamic.
Bullying.
That's exactly what it is.
Bullying.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. You've got it right.
One way or the other, the other leads to the next.
So, are you still?
My question. I want to apply the question.
Yes, I'm listening.
It shouldn't be too long.
That's the question, Mavich.
How many guys here went to high schools?
I knew that was the question.
That what?
I knew that was the question. I knew that was a question. Mavich, can I contextualize? No, we can talk about it. I'm just going to contextualize it. So
was it abuse?
Yes, it was.
Maybe not for today.
We can contextualize it. So any sort of, so when we're in high school, right? There was a power dynamic between.
It is.
I'm just gonna. Yeah. So let me just explain it, Mavich.
Okay,
let's kind of. Yeah. So. Yeah. Let's just.
No, he's right. Actually. No, I'm sorry. No, you just are actually correct. Combination out of the records.
So to contextualize your thing is that in high school we get into the spaces where there's initiation.
I must see it. I must say
You're an abuser.
I'm being abusive. Yeah. Really being.
You're an abuser.
You know, we're busy having a conversation about abuse and you're sitting with an abuser.
I'll edit.
I know, my man. I must say up opinions. Debate opinion.
I'm gonna edit a lot of shit out. Anyway, let me. I'm actually gonna edit the whole high school thing out. Let me just go back to the point I was making. Right.
But frustrating,
So anyway, so as I was saying, right, it's a power dynamic, which means that I've got something with me that can overpower Usbulele so much that it debilitates him and he needs to succumb to what I'm giving to him. Yeah. That means you've taken somebody, right, and you've reduced them to a level of but they are an object. That's how you need to see somebody. It's an object you're relating to as opposed to a complex human being. How can I paint this example? We've had a chat about this before. And let's look at a remote control, a TV remote control, right? When you pick a TV remote control and you press something, you're expecting it to do exactly as you pressed it should. What happens, Butaman, when you press that and it doesn't do that? What's the next response you have on that?
Bang, bang, bang.
Exactly. Bang, bang, bang. Because the idea you have of what it needs to do is exactly that, right? Now, unfortunately, when it comes to human beings have their own sense of self. Now, if I say to you, say this needs to happen, and you don't respond as I'm saying, what's the next thing I need to do if I have reduced to an object? If I press and you don't move how I need to, the frustration raises and I can't understand why I shouldn't be sorting you out.
You need to recalibrate.
Exactly. I've got to recalibrate you. And now in my understanding of that is that this is how things need to have been happening. So who's at fault here? The remote.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the fact that I didn't check the batteries that they're working or not. It doesn't matter that I didn't check that I've had this remote for 2 years and it should be malfunctioning. It doesn't help that I didn't check that the remote has something blocking it from whatever, right? That's even the slightest. Now, if it's a human being that you're engaging with, they have different ideas, different traditional backgrounds, different whatever from you. But if you reduce them to a degree where they're an object, you can exert yourself and your power over them because that's how you view them. Now, if you treat those people like that every single day of their existence, what do you think is supposed to be their belief system after that and existing in this? Mind you, you're closing off everybody. JP can't talk about this. Ace can't talk about this. This is here. All I'm doing is making sure you understand and you believe that you are this thing that I've told you are. And you don't exist outside of that. Now, which part of me is going to be comfortable to express myself if I've been reduced to such a small thing?
Just to add on to that.
Do you see that? So that's how far deep the abuse goes, is that you renege so much to somebody that you've reduced them so much that you've convinced and acted in ways that they can't relate outside of that. And now you still have to ask that person, why don't you say anything? Say what? This is who I've now been positioned to be.
And this is who I am.
Exactly. So that's what it makes it so difficult. Exactly. So the systemic way of engaging with this, whereby you've got to associate yourself with mates that can say, Espra, that's not how we move. You've got to associate yourself with people that can recognize that I'm on baby girl, you're moving in it, you're not as calm as you used to be, right? Exactly. So it needs to be a systemic thing. But I think at the end of the day, what we do agree on is that the intervention doesn't only just come from the person that's been the abuser. It also needs to happen. The intervention also needs to happen on the person that's been abused. And the intervention also needs to happen around the people that are staying with both of these people in the circles they're in, so that they can keep telling each other that except boy or except girl, this is not what it's supposed to look like.
Are we saying there's no solution?
That was the solution.
One of the simplest examples that I was going to make was that if you date someone that has been abused, and you have not been an abuser as a guy, or a chick has not been an abuser, she has been whatever. get into a relationship with the cherry egg.
Yeah.
Hey, you'll be the most frustrated person because you'll think that you don't love them.
Yep.
You're not beating them up.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how they've been programmed.
Mm-hmm.
That is how they've been conditioned to think, okay, beating is the only love that I can give to you and whatsoever. What about now, with what you're saying? What about them now having to accept that this was the abuse that I've experienced? Whether they know, but how long is it going to take for them
to recognize that?
And
a very long time.
And with them taking that long, let us talk about the actual facts. For them to actually acknowledge how many more people will they damage.
Yeah, it's true.
Before they get to a point of them acknowledging that I was abused. How many more people, because they can move from a relationship of them being abused, get to a relationship of not being abused, thinking that they're not loved because love is. Make this person think that you don't love me, this person is going to change their mindset depending on how weak and strong and mild and whatever they can adopt to the situation. And then this person, if they are weak, they're going to think that, no, man, this is love. How many more other people that this person that comes from an abused relationship, before they get to the right one, how many more other people are they going to damage? So where do we need to start with giving the right one?
That's a good question to put up.
When you hurt people.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then when you ask where does it start from or where we should address it from, it's from young.
Yes.
When kids are kids and they still have that ability to learn and to shape their ideology of what does a man look like, what does a woman look like, what does a relationship look like, what does marriage look like. You can get them at young and educate them that abuse is not just physical. Abuse is emotional.
Yeah.
Abuse is psychological. There's so many different degrees.
Yes.
And if they are aware and they can recognize what the different levels of abuse is and different forms of abuse from a young age, they know what it is, therefore they won't accept it when it starts happening. But again, it happens subtly. Maybe you get into a relationship and the boyfriend decides, no, I know you wanted to go see your girls this weekend, but let's just have it our weekend. Next weekend, he says the same thing. No, let's just have our weekend. Let's get away. He's slowly conditioning her to not hang out with the friends and stay with him. Now it's that controllingness of you can't see your friends because you are mine. You are my object, as you were saying. And once it starts slowly like that, then they start getting comfortable. Like, no, I can't be with my girls this weekend. I'm with my man. We're going somewhere. We're doing something. She thinks she's getting love from him, that he's controlling her, that she can't have anyone else, any other friends but him. So her network is surrounded by him and him alone. She cannot move if he doesn't press the button for her to move.
Yeah. So on that one, James, I would like to, and then I'll hop into another question that we need to I think we just have two more questions or two more segments before we close it off. On that one, James, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. But I think that people who are watching this will need to learn how to differentiate between, I'm never very good at this particular word, but I'm going to use it anyway. Enmeshed, which means me and Asipe, as much as we are individuals, but we are so in together that Asipe can't exist outside of me. I can't exist outside of Asipe. That's how much the boundaries are.
What's the word?
Enmeshed.
So people entangle.
Too entangled, yeah. Like Ulili would have been here. That's how enmeshed. It doesn't matter what she wants to be part of what you need to do, and vice versa. And there are acceptable relationships with those partners because that's how they move. Yes, we can argue about how healthy it is or not, but it speaks to that point of baby, it's me and you this weekend. Baby, it's me and you. It might not be abuse, but our boundaries are so like this to a point where we can't exist outside of the space, which is not so healthy. But there is a space where Usbulile says, baby, I need to go, and the baby says, you're not going anywhere. That's a different move, right? That's a different space. All right. And sometimes even those people that are saying those, they don't recognize as abuse. They recognize how can you want to go chill with Livia when me and you want to? I thought you said you wanted to be my girlfriend. You wanted me to be to be your girlfriend. How are you going to chill with Livia? I don't understand. To them, that's not control. It's you needing to step up and show me how affectionate and how much you love me. You see how difficult that becomes. Yeah. All right. So that really does come back to the point that there's so many variations of abuse. There's so many variations of control. There's so many variations of violence without the use of hands that a lot of people have experienced. Which brings me to one question. Smudaman, how do you, outside of being hit, outside of being cursed at, sworn at, how or what examples do you have of how men have been or can be abused outside of those two scenarios? Without being hit, never mind the hitting part. That's clear. We know what physical abuse and violence is. We know when somebody's verbally, right, abusive to a man looks like. Are there any other ways that a man can be abused in a relationship? Can a man be abused in a relationship? What do you think, Ntlu?
I think a man, one of many ways is to be manipulated into a certain mindset or reality. Where, for example, if you're coming back to the point of you wanting to exist outside the confines of this relationship, that is prohibited and it's frowned upon, because now you are going outside of the space. How are you finding comfort so easy outside of this? You're supposed to be here. Because I think also a restriction of movement is also a form of abuse. Because if I may make an example of, there's a big difference between an animal at the zoo and an animal at Kruger National Park. The animal at the zoo, its only existence is to only exist inside that cage, which is as big as the sun. Whatever. And it's fed when the owner wants to feed it. It can sit there and growl until the owner decides it's time for you to eat. And out of what you are eating, I am deciding what you're going to eat. You won't have salad today. You are having this thing of steak. And that time, maybe the lion only wanted salad that day, or they only wanted to drink water. You understand? Yeah. So to bring it back to where we were, if your reality is getting manipulated into being made to believe that going outside this relationship to go and find something fulfilling, you are now showing that this relationship is not enough. You are not getting enough out of this relationship, or it's no longer serving you.
What does it say about you if that's how you feel about somebody wanting to individuate outside of you? What do you think that says about you?
It's very difficult if I can say it, because it comes back to me saying there's more than one way of someone to be abused without being sworn at, because it's a form of manipulation. Now, if you are getting manipulated, it can also be camouflaged as someone showing care. Someone is distorting your reality to saying, no, I care so much about you. I want to show you that I'm invested, and so
it's the passion that made me hit you.
So it's not easy to say what does it say. I don't think it's very easy to just out and say what it says about you. I think it says more about the other person,
the abused person,
the abuser.
The abuser. That's what I meant. What does it say about the abuser? That's what I meant. What does it say about the abuser? Because it's the abuser that would say, you can't move and go have another space outside of me. Is that not what you were saying?
Yeah.
So what does it say about the abuser? If that's how you feel you need to act to a person, that she can't have something outside, because if she wants outside, why is this not enough?
No, Appa, your question, if you remember, your question was, can men be abused
okay,
without being sworn at? So now I'm answering in the sense that the abuse is being received by
the man.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to answer.
I see what you mean.
Now
from the other side.
person.
That's okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Now we must put them. Any other point? That makes a hell of it makes a lot of sense for most Buddha man.
It does.
Any other point? Can men be abused in a different way? Are men capable of being abused outside of being violent?
Yes.
Okay.
No, definitely. Yeah.
Let's have an example in terms of outside of being hit, outside of being sworn at and cursed at and thrown with all these terrible terms. Buddha mentioned one example. Is there another example in which men can be abused, and how does it look?
Okay, I'm not gonna wish, but I saw and I saw wish that this conversation was going to be about us having to express ourselves as men and how we are.
That's exactly the time now to express that. How are we being abused?
Men are being abused, but I'm going to only point out on one. I think it's more concurrent with what you were saying, if that's a correct word. It depends on the way as well. But if you cannot do and exist, however, and you are going to be limited, the limitations are not going to be, they can be either vocal, and that you are not going to do A, B, C, D, F, G, or they can be silent, and you are only going to be shown by sign. Those are signs of abuse. Okay, sure. When you come back from home at 9 o'clock and someone is angry, and you don't even know what you've done, they don't know what you are doing. You don't know what you've done.
I see what you mean.
You understand? But the person that is going to be, you come in the door, you are happy from where you're coming from. Now they are angry because you are happy.
Now it has created a scenario in their heads. This
now your happiness has created a scenario
is so happy that she must have cooked.
Basically, if I'm not part of their transactions, I need to be angry at them.
Yeah.
So now for them to feel that when they're not
I think now there's also a scenario in their head that the way he's so happy, he's lying.
There must have been.
He did not only go and hang out with his friends.
How are you so happy?
And that woman cooked up a storm. Why is he lying?
So that is a very.
Are you telling? Is that the reality for men?
Like, no, it is. That's a common sign of men being abused, and it gets extended from that.
Yeah.
It gets very deeper than that, because if you allow a person to, okay, let me not talk about allowing.
But it happens.
Yeah, it happens when a person allow it. When a person feels a type of way when you have done whatever that makes you happy, it becomes, especially in a relationship of two people. I'm gonna make this example because it's a practical one. I'm sitting here. Someone gets in the door. My boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend. The minute they get in the door, I'm looking at them. I've been sitting there waiting for them. I'm not even watching TV. I'm waiting for them to get in there. The minute they get in the door, they have been happy where they were. And I look at my watch and I say, this is the time for you to come home. Is that not a sign of you being abused as a person that is coming inside the door? Or is that not a sign of you having abused the person that has been sitting waiting for you? It can be between the two. And it depends on the dynamics. The dynamic can be that what were the communications?
Yeah.
What were the agreements? What were the expectations?
Yeah.
If the expectations were different from what you are presenting now, then it's a different story. But so on and so forth.
Nice. No,
he touched on it. The communication part. Because that's where I was going, where he was saying the person was waiting for you because you had said that you're coming home at a certain time. But when on your side, did you communicate that, okay, I'm no longer coming back at 8, I'm coming back at 9? So it just all boils down to communication.
The communication part. Exactly.
And can I ask a question? Can I ask a question before we pass on this? Missing a part of a communication. I don't know if
that makes sense.
Missing a part of a communication, does it really get you to be defined as an
abuse? Good question, because that's exactly where I was going. Yeah.
Does it really get you to be defined as an abuser? Okay, for instance, what you're saying is that if you said you were coming back at 10 and you came back at 12, that's an hour later. We're not going to count 11, that's an hour. 12 is you coming back.
Yeah.
Now, does it really define you as an abuser, or does the person that is going to receive you coming back at a later time than what you have explained an abuser when they react to?
Yeah. So, Mavich, ayizulunga mntakwethu lento izama. Because lo muntu uzambiza kufuneka acte abonisa bakule camera bakwenzeka ntoni. So mntakwethu andazi wayile drink ozayenza ufuneka ingxole because ufuna ukukhangela ice, so andiyazi buyiplana kanjani le uyenzayo.
Hlala phansi Mavich.
Hlala phansi mntakwethu, sine 20 minutes siyivale ufumane drink yakho.
20 minutes.
Inde nale sesayivala. So izohlala phansi mntakwethu usivalele ncoko then uhambusele sabusuka kubetha kule. Izohlala phansi mntakwethu kaloku. Ubukhe waqala pha yenye 30 seconds to a minute, hlala phansi. Noba uthetha nganto yakuthi sayivala ngoku. Cha le action uzama uyenza pha ayizosilungela kule nto esifuna uyenza. Masivale. Okay. And that's the part I wanted to touch on, right? Is that we need to be aware that just because I'm disgruntled doesn't mean I'm being abused. Just because I'm not satisfied or I'm unhappy for whatever reason there is, it doesn't mean that I'm being abused. That's why it was very important to highlight the dynamic of what abuse is when you treat it and deconstruct it to a point where you are in a single object. That's why men can rape. It's because I've reduced you to a person that doesn't have feelings but an object of my gratification for that moment. And I forget you after that. Or I may remember you, but I won't remember you as the whole rounded person with personality characteristics, flaws or whatever. All I know is that I've got a memory of what I have done on top of this object. That's what because rape is an abuse. So that's what it means. So if the relationship has gotten to a point where you've been reduced to that degree consistently, that's what abuse is. But if there are certain expectations that weren't communicated and now there's resentment, it's not abuse. If the conversation between me and you haven't gotten to a place where we have agreed on something and this is how that's not abuse. That's a platform that says, because we have two different minds as human beings and we recognize that, we won't have the same views all the time. And because we don't have the same views, we will disagree and there will be a disgruntled person. The part is that we have a conversation and resolve that. That's not abuse. It's part of the relationship because we are two different individuals that recognizes we both have different ideas of what this life thing is, right? That's not abuse in that sense as you were mentioning it. Unless you have reduced somebody to that degree. You move how I move, when I move, All right. So let's come to a closing of this, gentlemen. Right? We've spoken about men and female can be abusers. We've spoken about what abuse is. Right? We've spoken about how men can be abused as well. Right? And it goes so subtle sometimes because the abuse that men will experience is not always a physical or verbal one in terms of shouting and all of that. It can come from a place of, if you don't come through the door at the time expected, in the way expected, in how I expected, exactly how it is, there's a ramification of how I'm going to move. And that's how everything is going to be, regardless of our, we might have not even have those conflicts, but in a sense of control, those are the type of things that men will be abused for. The manipulation, as Bulele mentioned as well. So we've identified a couple of those. And one of the things that we also agreed upon is that there are individuals that can feel, that there are individuals that can go about treating people as abusers, but noted as a normal way of engaging, which requires mates in the situation of Smulele to highlight that. We've understood that trying to address the issue of abuse also has to be a systemic thing. It's not just the perpetrator that needs to be engaged with, it's the individual who's been victimized. It's also the people that have been witnessing in the circle. So it's a systemic thing as well. That's what we've also spoken about. So now we're going to come to the last part of it, where each of us are just going to talk about what's the final word do we have? What's the final word we have when it comes to this particular conversation about men and abuse and violence? What's the last word do you want to put? Either you can give a little bit of advice in terms of how do we address this going forward. Either you can tell us what is it that you've taken from this conversation. Just give us a final word of about a minute. We can start from where I got and then we come down. Yeah.
We're talking on how men can.
Like just the final word. Whether you took something from this, yeah.
On abuse.
On abuse. Whether it's something you heard and what you're taking and what stood out for you, or is there something you want to add for the last time that you want to tell somebody, but anything that's the last thing you want to say about this conversation.
Okay, so what I've picked up from it all is that sometimes there is between a relationship of a man and a woman, there's a thin line between communication and abuse. Like, for example, what we spoke about earlier, that you communicated that you're coming home at 8, but you come home at 9, but you don't communicate that you're coming home at 9. So now that's a communication part. You did not communicate. You're not abusing.
Yeah.
Whereas abuse, maybe not physical, but it's emotional. You've reduced that person to something that you can control. So now, from there's a certain way that you are treating this person. And you're comfortable with that, you think you're right, or until someone else points that out. So I think I wouldn't say you should be on the lookout, but you should also be a person that can easily speak to other people. Or if it's not people, there's psychologists. Speak to those people. They could assist you. Yes. Yeah, they could assist you overcome such problems, and just never ignore red flags.
Yeah.
If there's just one red flag, take it serious and act on it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I think one of the things to take away, or that what I take away from me, was the fact that dynamics are very important. Now, why I say dynamics are very important is O'Brien highlighted something very important to say. We need to be very careful with how we use or we view abuse, because it can be a basic error, lack of communication error, or lack of a message being understood the way it was conveyed. And then it creates a tension. And now, because this word, the abuse, has been thrown around so loosely sometimes, anything can be abuse, or an abuser, you know. So I think coming back to what we had spoken about earlier, is that bravery to approach the person that is being abused, to eliminate the embarrassment out of it, because once you can't eliminate the embarrassment, the person will deny the existence of the abuse in that space. So at least try to create a secure environment so that when the person, put the person in such an easy space so that when they feel like passing in the opportunity, they might also be aware that this might be my one and only opportunity to speak out, because right now I'm feeling so safe that
I might not
even if I will regret it later, let me just spill it out. So, and once you receive the news, I think we also need to train ourselves to divorce our emotions from hearing that person's experience, because it's so easy when someone tells you of something, your face drains pain and you say, nonsense, Leo. What have you done? That person now will snap out of it. You will not get anything out of that person going forward, and they can say, you know what, I retract that, and you go and you take action on it. The police maybe come and the person says, I'm not being abused, I don't know where this person got this from. So we need to be very careful around this area. Eliminate the embarrassing part out of it. Make sure you provide a secure space. Know how to receive the information without judging. And then once you diagnose, also when you diagnose, make sure that the person does not also feel like now the light is shining on them. Now they are a charity case now.
I see. Makes sense, good man. Makes sense. Makes sense. Mavic.
Uthi
Final word.
ikanje man le nto, like it's quite simple. Okokuqala, we have to be guys ngabantu. People, human beings, no one is perfect.
No one is perfect.
Yes. Akho muntu onaplani ukuthi if you do this A, B, C, you are done. Okay. But kwelam icala ke, based on how I see things, it's quite simple. Based on how I see things. Gents, xa ungumntu ohlala nomntu phakathi kwabanye abantu, based on the topic at hand, abuse. Xa uyindoda okanye ungumfazi okanye ungumntu oawe ukuthi khona i-situation ekanje ine-abuse ekhona emphakathini, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's very hard. It's very hard. But ke kuhlela amadoda ngoku. And I think i-topic yethu revolver mostly around isenayo i-interest ukuthi abafazi bona bathini. But kwelam icala amadoda bayazama ukuthi bayibone ngendlela abayibona ngayo. Yes, thank you. Men, they have their way of seeing it, how it is. Different opinions, it's not the same. It depends on who you are, what you're thinking. Everything is fine, you know. But I'm very interested in what the women
It's always an interesting look from both sides.
Yeah. But from where I am coming from, my opinion, Uliviwe Ubungana Mtimkulu, he's saying, James, nothing will ever reach or beat. And then when you're speaking about reflection, it depends on how you're looking at it. different ways of looking at it.
Mm.
But for me, if as a person, as a man, as a human being, go down, reduce yourself if it means that you should do that. Just go to a point where you just need to identify yourself, number one. After that, if it's fine and it makes sense, you're not messing out anyone's life, go back to the public. The public or the bylaws, in other words. If it's fine, James, as long as you're not messing out anyone's life, it's fine.
Danke, my fish. Danke,
It's
my
fine.
fish. Danke, my fish. Ace?
Sort out yourself.
You know, ngingathi into yobana ngizozama usebenzisa amagama esilungu kuba one is, it's something that I always preach again, to my peers, friends, relationship, whatever, that you need to have a mentality that says you create principles. Remember, you were born with principles, policies, values, beliefs, and whatever. But in any relationship that you get into, you need to architecture relationship principles, policies, beliefs. If you come, if you come with I am, it's not going to work. You need to identify on how the other person thinks. How do they prefer things done? How do I prefer things done? Therefore, let us meet each other halfway at that. If we are able to meet each other halfway, a lot of problems can be avoided. There was a point that one of the gentlemen mentioned. Abuse is very diverse. It's very diverse because it does not necessarily mean that we are men are abusers. We are also abused. Women are also abused. And they are abused. One, accountability. Two, recognition.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah.
Yes. Because I wanted to mention that because accountability is something that says if you are there and you are saying that sorry, the sorry that says sorry in you is the sorry that says sorry in her. Because sorry might be a word that says sorry. And in all frankness and in all bold and honesty, we need to have these frank conversations because honestly, this is not a lie. Abuse is a very serious thing. It's there. It's there for women and it's there for men. And it's what really contributes on how one, from here, after having this conversation, when we get home, how one is going to react to the problems that they have been facing. How one that is going to be watching this video is going to be facing their problems and what impact has it done. What word is one? That is my advice. Identify your principles, policies, values, and goals. Do not impose them to someone else. Never impose them to someone else because they are not theirs. They have got theirs. They were raised. I usually say this. We were born, we met, you've got how many teeth do we have? 36?
What is it? Is it 32?
32 or 38?
32, I think it's 32.
So in all honesty, you can't tell a person that has got full grown teeth what to do. You can only suggest. And if they disagree, it ends there.
Not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. Yes, I'm done.
The funniest thing you'll ever experience is a Xhosa man trying to translate a Xhosa saying into English and trying to make sure that it fits directly.
Yes,
because
that's what I was trying to
what's
do.
going on. Jean Patry, what's your final take, my boy?
Yeah, so many good points on all sides.
So many good points.
And there's not one thing that can summarize everything. Because as you said, there's so many different degrees of abuse that comes in different ways and forms, from both men to women and women to men. And I would say, as Aisha mentioned, let this conversation with us not just stay with us. Those that are watching, don't just keep the information you've gathered or different viewpoints you've heard and seen from us, but take this conversation to your friends. See what they say. In doing so, you might liberate someone to speak up that they're being abused, or you might highlight something that maybe I am abusing my friend because of 1, 2, 3, or my partner because of 1, 2, 3. In getting to know your friends, don't have topics that you are scared to speak about, because you speaking about that topic might just help that person that's also struggling with that topic. So just be open about everything. Abuse, as men, speak about if you are being abused. Create a platform, create a safe space to feel free to open up and allow others to open up. But then don't take that information and use it against them, because you will shut them down and shut others around you down, because now they don't trust you. Keep your word your word. Don't divulge what people confide in you. Let that stay between you guys, and if they allow, open up to a platform for help, but not for backstabbing or blaming or whatever. Keep it in a safe space to help each other. Only way we're going to be able to eradicate this is by education. And that starts with you.
Very important part. Thanks, James. Mntakwethu igama lakho elipheleleyo ngubani?
Hlala nathi.
Awo manje kubana okay. Hlala nathi.
Hlala nathi.
Hlala nathi. The reason why I was asking, because I'm going to close off with you, but obviously there was a gap between JP and me asking, so I can edit this part out. Okay. Thanks, James. And from my side, I think the biggest thing that I've gathered here is that there's a lot of masculine qualities that have been misused and used to a degree whereby they have made abuse acceptable, because that's what a man should be doing, right? That's what a man is. That's what I've learned to how a man should be. So I think that's a mistake. And to a degree whereby there's an entitlement of how people should respond to you as a man. But that's not what it's about. When a man is being respected, and when a man has somebody that have recognized their leadership role, where they've accepted their leadership role, it's as a result of the value that that man has contributed to that home. And then the wife, girlfriend, whatever, watches that and identifies with that and feels like, Yazin, this is something I can actually move forward. And then understands that I can move with that because she feels secure, safe, and willing to engage with that man. And that man becomes a leader. Now, when you take away the part of you've got to be value internally before somebody follows you, if you forget that, what you're left with is that that person needs to do whatever the hell I tell them to do. That's not what it is. And sometimes a lot of entitled senses of abuse come from that, because you can't understand why a woman is going to say no to you as a man. That's not the default. Just because you're born with a penis doesn't make you a leader of anything. It doesn't make you a runner of any organization or any team or any sense of whatever. It's the value you provide and the responsibility that you take upon yourself, that when somebody looks at that, they'll be like, actually, that's exactly what I would like in my home as a woman or whatever the case might be. And that's where you push. So some people tend to forget that part. So, but on the other hand, because that's been done so much, masculinity has also been framed as inherently wrong. When we speak of masculine qualities, we do speak of sense of leadership qualities. We do speak of there will be aggression that has to do with masculine qualities, aggression that is very integrated though. You are capable of it, but you don't just exert it at any point in time you decide to. So that's what I mean about that. You mentioned something here?
Bravery.
Bravery has to be part of that. You've got to be capable, but you've also got to be capable of softness because you're going to have a baby girl. You've got to turn down to a baby girl. A baby girl can't act on your hard sense. There's got to be a sense of you being able to create a secure space for your baby little girl to feel secure and puffy without you losing a sense of protection over her. You've got to integrate that. All of that plays a part. So masculine qualities aren't inherently wrong, and masculine qualities don't suddenly mean that there must be an abuser there. If they are not integrated in a way that it serves outside of you, then they're going to be used to serve you. And once they start being used to serve you, then nobody matters, which means that everybody you engage with, including your missus, becomes that reduced thing that it's me and you got to do whatever the hell I want because why? I'm a man. But now if you keep perpetuating that message, every woman you meet, I think you mentioned it. Somebody mentioned what happens to the next, I think it was you, I'm not sure. Yeah. What happens to the next person that you know? But if you keep perpetuating that same message that you have to listen to because I'm a man, then that becomes the narrative. And that's not what masculine qualities inherently are about. But people can use them like that. So abusers are abusers. They can make use of masculine qualities to try and abuse their partners, but inherently, masculine qualities are not abusive qualities, are not subjugating qualities. They can be used for that, and that's not what they should be used for. They need to be integrated to a point where they work for the society. They work for the team you're trying to lead. So if you think that wherever you are, that's my final say, as a man, you have the right to lead a team, first check why you. What makes you think that you have qualities, you personally, to lead a bloody team where kids, as an infant, need to look at you and say, I'm going to follow daddy anyway? What the hell do you got to provide that will make these people feel rested that you can lead them? If you can't answer that question, you can't give that to nobody.
I can definitely answer that one.
You can't give that to nobody. I don't care what you think you are. If you can't answer that, if you think, then maybe we can have a chat about it. But if you can't say to yourself, I'm confident that this is how I'm leading this team and this is how it's going to look like, and that if you can't answer that for what value you bring, you can't expect somebody to see that value in you. You can't expect that. But that's the problem with sometimes where they define people being abusive. They've got this entitled sense that it's my way because I'm a man. And you've got to deal with it. But that's not what it was. It's the value you brought that got the people secured enough to push it with you. And that's what it did. So don't miss that part. That's the final say I have. So, gents, thank you so much. It's been good. It was a nice conversation that we had. I think like most of you guys mentioned, is like, take what you can from this conversation, make use of it somewhere, take it somewhere, have conversations out there. You've got disagreements, great. You've got agreements, great. The point is to keep having conversations about what we're talking about. Not everybody gets the chance to engage in these conversations without the fear of being bashed. We're chilling as gentlemen. These are my mates. We're chilling as gentlemen. We're having this conversation. We have this conversation outside of the space. But we thought it was very important that we come through the space and actually have this chat here so everybody else around, wherever you're at, where you're watching this, can start having these conversations as well. So please take what you can, leave what you don't need. But the point is that we get to hear what men get to think about and what men get to talk about when it comes to different types of conversations. There's more of this type of chats on our channel, so please visit Karis Impact Academy. That's on YouTube, that's on Instagram, that's on LinkedIn, soon coming to Twitter, to TikTok. We are on Twitter as well. But with me, we've got JP, myself, Brian, we've got Ndabeni Asipe, we've got Lloyd Olivia, we've got Spudaman, and we've got H. And all of us here just trying to have a good conversation around what we think and what we believe and what we've experienced. Let's hear what you've got to say. So thank you so much. Cheers.